Kyoto is a city built on layers of history, most of it gold leafed and beautiful. But beauty has a cost. Every temple has a shadow, and every mountain has a wound. Tonight, we're talking about a wound that won't heal. It's a narrow, damp vein of concrete and iron that cuts through the heart of Mount Atago. To the GPS, it's just the Kiyotaki Tunnel. To the locals, it's a meat grinder that never quite finished its work. They say the dead don't just walk here, they wait. They wait for the traffic light to change. They wait for your eyes to meet the rearview mirror. And if you believe the whispers, they've been waiting since 1927 for someone to pay the debt of their blood. Stay tuned. Don't look behind you. We're going in. They've been waiting since 1927 for someone to pay the debt of their blood. Stay tuned. Don't look behind you. We're going in. To understand the ghost, you have to understand the labor. We aren't talking about modern construction with safety harnesses and unions. We're talking about the Taisho and early Showa eras, a time when Japan was industrializing at breakneck speed, and the human cost was considered a rounding error. In 1927, the Atagoyama Railway Company decided they needed a way to transport pilgrims and tourists up the mountain to the Atago Shrine. But the mountain is stubborn. It's a jagged mass of rock and roots. They needed a tunnel, and they needed it fast. This is where the history gets dark. Much of the labor used to carve out this 500-meter stretch wasn't local, it was forced labor. Thousands of workers, many of them Korean conscripts brought over during the occupation, were treated as expendable tools. They worked in takosubo octopus pots. That's what they called the small, cramped spaces where men would dig until their lungs gave out from the dust or their hearts stopped from the heat. Historical records are intentionally vague. The company didn't want a scandal, but the oral history of the region tells a different story. During the final months of construction, a massive internal collapse occurred. The mountain claimed its first tithe. It wasn't just a few men, it was a whole shift. Instead of digging them out and delaying the project, the story suggests the debris was completely leveled and the concrete was poured over the remains. Think about that the next time you drive through, you aren't just driving through rock, you're driving through a tomb where the walls are made of bone and slave grade cement. You are breathing the air that was trapped in their lungs when the ceiling came down. In Western occultism, we fear the numbers 666. In Japan, the terror is more linguistic. Shi, it means four, and it also means death. The Kiyotaki Tunnel is officially listed as roughly 500 meters long, but here's the thing about the underworld. It doesn't care about your measuring tapes. Drivers have a phenomenon I call the elastic mile. You enter the tunnel, you check your odometer, you should be out in less than a minute. But for some reason, the tunnel begins to stretch. The lights, those sticky yellow sodium lamps, begin to blur. The exit seems to retreat further away the faster you drive. When these drivers finally emerge shaking and sweating, they check their trip meter. It doesn't say 500 meters, it says 444. Why 444? Because in the Shinto and Buddhist traditions of the region, that number acts as a beckoning. It is a triple seal of morality. If your card records 444 meters, the legend says you didn't actually leave the tunnel. You left a version of it, but you brought something back with you. A hitchhiker from the Shi realm. Because the tunnel is so narrow, only one car can pass at a time. There's a traffic light at the end. It's an old system, flickering, unreliable, but it's not the wiring you should be worried about. The most famous rule of Kiyotaki is the green light trap. If you arrive at the tunnel and the light is green, do not enter. Think about the logic of a predator. A predator lures you in with a sign of safety. If the light is green when you arrive, it's believed that the spirits are inviting you into a clear the way for an accident. Those who enter on a ghost screen often report seeing the light in the rearview mirror turn blood red the second they pass it, as if the door has been locked behind them. And then there's the lady. Every haunted road has one, but the Kiyotaki woman is different. She isn't a hitchhiker looking for a ride. She's a jumper. In the late 1980s, the forest above the tunnel entrance became a frequent site for self exiting. One woman in particular, wearing a white dress that has now become the uniform for her ghost, jumped from the overhead ridge and landed directly on the hood of a moving car. Now, drivers report a rhythmic thump, thump, thump on their roof as they drive through the center of the tunnel. When they get home, they find handprints on the dust on their roof. Small, feminine handprints pressed from the outside. The local warning is simple: do not look into the mirrors. There are reports from teenagers, the brave men of Kyoto, who go there on dares, who looked into the convex glass and didn't see their car. They saw a woman standing directly behind their vehicle, her hands reaching for the tailpipes. But the real curse is internal. It is said that if you look into the mirror and see a ghost, you will perish an unnatural way. Within the year, it's a visual infection. The image of the spirit stays in your retina, a digital virus of the soul, until it eventually manifests in your reality as a car crash, a fall, or a sudden illness. The mirrors aren't there to show you the road, they're there to show you your expiration date. We like to blame ghosts for the bad vibes of a place. It's easier than admitting what humans are capable of. But in 1988, the Kiyotaki Tunnel became the stage for a crime that made the ghosts look like saints. A group of five young men, fueled by adrenaline and a complete lack of empathy, kidnapped a 19-year-old girl. They didn't take her to a basement or a warehouse. They took her to the most feared place they knew, The Kiyotaki Tunnel. They tortured her in the woods just above the entrance. When they were done, they didn't just leave her. They set her on fire while she was still breathing. The screams that people heard today, he- the screams that people hear today, the high-pitched metallic shrieks that echo through the tunnel walls, people say it's the construction workers or the woman in white, but if you listen closely, if you strip away the wind and the engine noise, it sounds like a young girl in 1988 wondering why the world turned into a furnace. This is why the tunnel feels heavy. It's not just spooky, it's the site of active trauma. The ground is saturated with the adrenaline of the dying. Most people visit Kiyotaki for a thrill, but then there are the seekers. These are the ones who don't just want to see the underworld, they want to step inside it. They use a method known as the Ura Kiyotaki ritual, or the backward path. To perform this, you don't just drive through. You have to break the logic of the road. You have to prove to the mountain that you aren't a traveler. You're an intruder. It begins at the north entrance. You must be alone. If there is another heartbeat in the car, the mountain stays silent. You arrive during the Ushinokoku, the hour of the ox, between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. This is when the veil between the Shinto hidden world and our visible world is at its thinnest. You pull up to the stop line. You wait for the light to turn green, the ghost green. But instead of accelerating, you put the car in reverse. You drive backward away from the tunnel for exactly 44 meters. As you do this, you must keep your eyes locked on the rearview mirror. You aren't looking for cars, you're looking for the transition. The air inside the cabin will begin to smell of ozone and wet earth, the scent of a fresh grave. The digital clock on your dashboard will likely scramble, the numbers spinning until they settle on 444. Once you've reached the 44-meter mark, you stop. You kill the engine. You wait for the silence to become absolute. In that silence, you will hear the knock. It isn't on the window. It sounds like it's coming from the inside of the engine block. That is the signal. You restart the car, the headlights will appear dimmer, a sickly, jaundiced yellow. You drive forward into the tunnel. Those who have successfully crossed report that the exit doesn't lead back to the Arashiyama forest. Instead, they emerge into a silent Kyoto. In this version of reality, the street lights are all a deep, bruised purple. There are no birds, no insects, and no wind. The buildings are all there, but the doors are missing. There are no handles, no hinges, just smooth, impenetrable stone. The people you see in the in between aren't ghosts in the traditional sense. They are the hallowed. They stand on the street corners, perfectly still, facing the tunnel. They are the ones who performed the ritual but forgot the most important rule. Never turn off your engine once you emerge. To get back, you have to drive through the tunnel again, but this time you cannot use your mirrors. You must tape them over or break them. If you catch a glimpse of the in between sky in your reflection, you are tethered there. Your physical body returns to our world, but it's an empty vessel, a takospo shell. The Kiyotaki Tunnel isn't just a shortcut through a mountain, it's a physical manifestation of everything we try to forget. We try to forget the forced labor that built our cities. We try to forget the victims of senseless violence. We try to forget that we are all just one red light away from the end. But the mountain remembers, and the concrete remembers. If you're hearing this and you're currently sitting at a red light in northern Kyoto, look at your clock. If it says 444, don't put the car in reverse. Don't look for the in between. Because once the mountain recognizes you, it never stops calling your name. Drive safe and remember the green light isn't always a go. Sometimes it's a goodbye. I'm Vera, and this has been the Underworld Broadcast.